All right. So you've been beating the drum on the Megyn Kelly stuff.
Dum, 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 which is terrible because, she and I were not friends, but, I knew her. We would chat, text message from time to time, whatever.
Yeah, well, and it's a shame too because I grew a lot of my respect for her via my respect for the Fifth Column boys,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I'm sure they're in a funky place right now. I mean, Moynihan kind of confronted her on their most recent conversation on her show, but I've been sort of two minds about all of it. And I want to talk to you about all of it, but I kind of have come around to think you're probably just correct insofar as you've called all of this before I was willing to, when I still wanted to give benefit of the doubt. You've been really ahead of all of this stuff. So I'm inclined to trust your intuition
I'm
here.
due I'm due for my comeuppance. That's usually people get, they get high in their own supply or whatever you call it,
Yeah.
their own ego. But anyway, go ahead. Go ahead. I
No,
don't
I
think
get
I'm wrong. That was false humility. I think I'm right.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I think you're right too. And I think, and especially because you are, you made the point in one of your posts to say Megyn Kelly is not an anti-Semite. She doesn't hate
No.
Jews. It's just a completely inaccurate way to describe her. And I think that's right. Um, I guess part of me is sensitive to the way that she's reacting because I do think it's a very human reaction, which is, you people are telling you to not to do something, it makes you want to do it more. This is like an obvious thing. Also, it's like tinged with cancel culture stuff and free speech stuff, so there's all of these like cultural anchors that are influencing it. And then also I think something that I've deeply admired about Megyn Kelly from as far as I've been following her, which has really been since the Megyn show, in the last 5 years, Megyn Kelly show, she is very loyal. And she would have on liberals, right, and people on the left, and you could just tell that she cared about these people as people. She would talk about her long history with these people. She could have Jake Tapper on, like she can have people on and have she clearly is a loyal person. And that's something that I do respect. I think that's something that I respect in you as well. Very sort of benefit of the doubt, reach across the aisle, even for some really crazy people. And it gets you in trouble sometimes with the people around you, like giving benefit of the doubt to the Norman Finkelsteins of the world. But what do we do here, right? And I think we've really there's I guess there's a few things going on. I guess even if you're totally correct that like she is, I guess I'm curious about what the motivations are here. Is this totally a financial calculation like this? Because this is obviously the ascendance on the right. This is what people want to see. The top three news uh, channels on Spotify are Tucker Carlson, the New York Times, and Candace Owens. Okay,
Well,
so if
if you
she's,
call them news channels, but go ahead.
but I don't. But
Yeah.
Spotify does.
Oh,
You know what I
Spotify
mean?
does? Oh, I'm sorry. I
Spotify
didn't
does.
understand.
Yeah, Spotify
That's
does.
interesting. Yeah.
It's interesting. And this Richard Hanania was talking about this the other day.
It
So
may
that's
just means news as like an interest rather than an actual
sure.
purveyor of news.
But
Yeah.
of course, but I
Yeah.
mean, it's one, two, and three, right? Candace Owens
Mhm.
and Tucker Carlson are in the top three of where people are getting their information, their cultural, political, social information from.
It's insane.
It's insane. It's really, really, really disturbing on a level that I think people on the right who don't stand for this shit can't keep ignoring. And I think it's a lot of really well-intentioned people, and they really don't believe. They're pointing at the left and saying the left sold out to their crazies, and they really don't believe that that's happening on the right when I think it's already past that.
Hmm.
Like you guys have already been surpassed by the crazies. They are way more popular and sexy than you guys. Way more they, so there's that. So is it a financial calculation that she's making?
No, I don't think it is. But so first of all, she's she's loyal, but I'm trying to just remember everything you said. So first of all, she and Candace Owens were never friends before. If you search her Twitter profile for Candace Owens' name, you see that the only interactions were negative. They were sniping at each other about something. I don't even know what it was. So they have no
Okay.
friendship there. Tucker and she, of course, they've known each other for a long time. But she properly, savaged people who covered for Joe Biden or whatever, things like that, because they let their personal friendships corrupt them. So she has no leg to stand on. She doesn't deserve any allowance for that. And I put myself in her shoes. Yeah, I talk to anybody, but I don't even cut slack to people, anybody. I won't do an interview with somebody if I find that I'm not prepared to ask them what it is that I want. So when I've even with John Spencer, or I mean, if I agree with somebody, that's it's
To
harder
a,
for me because
almost to a fault, right? It rubs
yeah,
some of the people that you've had on the wrong way. They feel ambushed almost. But
yeah,
I
yeah.
totally respect what you're saying. You're not
So
willing to talk to someone
I
with all that baggage if you're not going to address the baggage.
right. So I'll give you an example that I still, and then I'll get to your question, that I
Yeah.
still like haunts me. I met Scott Adams because he um just totally heaped praise on me on his podcast after I did this interview with Philip Bump. I mean, he called me a star, and like I saved the video. I want my great grandkids to see it. He's so nice. So I had him on the show, but I said I'm gonna, I have to ask him. At that time, he got in trouble for making comments that people thought were racist and for defending Tucker Carlson after Tucker Carlson had those text messages where he talked about that's not how white people fight. And I had to ask him. I said, I'm not going to become one of these people who are just corrupted. Like, if I'm going to have the guy on. And by the way, to Scott Adams' credit, after the show, I emailed him and I tried to say, listen, I hope you're not angry with me. And he said, no, it was perfectly fine.
Good for
Now,
him.
he could have just been, saying, no, it doesn't hurt. But I don't think he was. I think he understood. So that made me like him even more. But I just wasn't going to, otherwise, I just wouldn't have interviewed him.
Right.
So anyway, so that's it. So I think it's financial. No, I don't think it's financial. I think it's all the corruption of personal relationships. Thank you, sweetheart.
Mm.
It's my son Benny. Yeah, I'm on the podcast now. Okay, you want to say hi? Yeah. Then I gotta go. No,
Hi there.
go, go, go.
Nice to meet you.
Oh, you want me to open it for you? I thought you were giving me something to drink. Okay, go.
You should have known better.
Okay, close the door. Close the door. Okay. Bye. Love you too. So, I thought that, so I think it's personal relationships, number one. And number two, I have this cynical feeling that she has her finger in the air and she understands that this is where the energy is now
Right.
in the audience. Audience isn't exactly the right word, in the movement that she wants to be a player in. And I suspect, I don't know. This is how like I'm having conspiracy theories, but I wouldn't really call this a conspiracy. I suspect it's very likely that she has JD Vance in a chat group with her and maybe Tucker as well. They're all friends. And because I could see no reason on earth that she would be kind to Candace Owens saying the kind of things that can oh, what a boy. See, he got me something to drink.
The guilting works. Yeah.
Oh, he's the best. I just don't see any reason like, and she said to Moynihan that she doesn't know, it's taken out of context. I don't find that believable. She's
I
been hearing
kind
it
of
too long.
I found that I did kind of find that plausible only because hear me out. And again, I really am it's like
You're
I'm
too nice.
fighting.
You're too
Well,
nice. You're too
or
nice.
I'm just like I'm fighting for it not to be. I'm fighting to not be as black pilled because if you're right, it's like we're in a worse place. But
Yeah.
I think there's just I mean Megan's show is a huge production. It's several hours that are being recorded every day, and then you know that they're prepping for it before, and she's got a family after. So to me, it's plausible that she's not watching Candace Owens, that she's seen a few things, and that some of the ones that she's been, you got to think also like some of the things that she's looking, maybe more context does make it better. Slash, she also has a different bar. She has a different bar of tolerance for what she thinks is acceptable. Now, how much of that do I know? Do I think that she's like thought deeply about? I don't know, but like there's stuff that's going to trigger you and I that's just not going to trigger her, right? That she would say, "Oh, I don't agree with that, but yeah, sure, why can't you say that or something?" So I do find it sort of plausible that she's not that she's not caught up on everything that Candace says. But you make a really interesting point about them not even really being friends, in which case
Yeah.
I then wonder if she is just sympathizing with Candace because she feels in her she
Tali,
perceives that they're both being attacked for this anti-Semitism thing. So let me really quickly let me go back to her and Charlie's conversation, right?
can I respond to what you said there?
Yes, yes.
I give it zero chance of being true because there was so much talk about. First of all, everybody saw the stuff going on about Candace Owens, talking about Christian babies disappearing in Passover and things like this. Where everybody saw it. Megyn is a follower of this stuff. Um, she would not have gone on record as uh, things being taken out of context if she hadn't looked into it. And if she had looked into it, there's just no way she could have thought it was all taken out of context. And having said that, so then she had that interview with Moynihan, and then the next day she was deluged with people sending her stuff, including me say, "Listen, I think you made a big mistake here. Just watch this one video." And it's that one video over 2 minutes where it's just unloading about blood
Right.
libel and pedophiles. And if I were her, I'm trying to think if I've ever been in a situation like this. I don't think so, but if I had been her and I saw that, I would have been on the next day on the air saying, you know what, yesterday I told Michael Moynihan it was taken out of context, but whoa, whoa, whoa. I was wrong. I saw this stuff. I can't believe what I saw, but just want you guys to know, no, this is not okay. It's very clear what she's saying, but she didn't do that.
And the
So
reason she didn't do that is because she knows where the political winds are going and she doesn't want to be in conflict with someone on the ascent.
yeah, and I mean, so I had another thing with her where um she had um well, I just can't say, but I don't want to, it's not that big a
Air
deal,
too
and
much
I don't want to
out.
divulge a private text, but it would be along the lines of a kind of a lack of interest that I would have in terms of looking into the details and sharing with the audience an important other side of the story that would change the way they perceived the side that they had heard on her show, that kind of thing. The things that I'm very, very sensitive to. And this is very, very important. Let you go on. This is it. I mean, this is beyond very, very important. It's crucial here. These are the kind of things that she would not be forgiving of in other people. This is so important because if she had a different kind of like philosophy of life, and she says, "No, I don't ever bother other people when they do that, and I do it too." They say, "Well, I don't really respect that, but I like, good for the goose and good for the gander. You're consistent, God bless you. Do what you want. It's your life." But that's not the way she is. She is merciless. Did you see that tweet I found about vis-a-vis Farrakhan?
I don't think so.
Oh, well, go ahead. You make your point. I'm gonna read you this tweet. Go ahead.
Well, I might want you to stay on this track so you can pull it
Okay.
up. But I was just going to say, like, going back to her conversation with Charlie, right? The last conversation that she had, that she's been now pushing at more and more, which that strikes me as a little bit nefarious, right? Like the letter that Charlie wrote to BB finally gets published, strongly undermines Candace's theory, proves, I think, that Candace probably did actually have access to the full letter because Candace was accusing Charlie of saying to BB, Israel is committing a genocide. Israel is an apartheid state. Why are we sending all of our money there? And Charlie did write those things as quotes of some of the questions that he gets asked by these college students when he
Right.
goes on campus. Um, so this whole thing comes out that totally undermines this whole conspiracy theory that Megyn could just not comment on at all if she's trying to not make waves with these people, but instead she kind of tries to feed that. Like, okay, yeah, we have this letter that came out today that shows that in May, Charlie was like loving on Israel and basically saying, "I want you guys to win so desperately. Please change, the way that you're addressing all of these things." But actually, you should really hear the last recorded conversation when he was speaking unfiltered to a friend about what he was really feeling, and this again
It's
happened
insane.
today. So there's so much
Yeah.
stuff that has happened since I reached out to you asking to talk about this even,
Right.
right?
So okay. So here's I just can I share my screen here? Did you?
Yeah.
So just to go back. Okay. Will it let me? Oh, yeah. So this was a tweet that Megan, it's from 2020, when the topic was Chelsea Handler and something with Farrakhan. I didn't even look into to remind myself what the details were, but somehow Chelsea Handler got in trouble for, being something favorable about Farrakhan. Anyway, and Megyn Kelly tweets, this is the tweet is deleted.
Right.
Chelsea Handler's delete tweet. This is unbelievable. And the list of celebrities who are either too stupid to know what Farrakhan has said publicly about Jews, or worse, do not care, is equally stunning. Now, this is the hypocrisy. This is
Yeah.
like precisely what I would say to Megyn Kelly. If you don't know, or worse, don't care,
Mm-hmm.
it's stunning. And this is my point. She makes this is the way she operates. And she's right. This is why we like her.
Right.
And now you're on this thing about Candace Owens, and you don't take the time to figure out, wait, all these people are saying that she's the worst anti-Semite they've ever seen. And my friend, and this is all very important. She respects these fifth column guys
Yes.
in her top tenth of 1% people that she respects. That's why she has them on the show. And by the
Yes.
way, they are some of the smartest guys there are. Level-headed,
They're my North
fair-minded,
Stars. Yes.
in terms of if they say something is true, it's true, right? So this is not any schmuck telling her this. This is Michael Moynihan, a mentor to her in a certain way, like he is to me. Like he knows more than any of us do.
He's a
And
genius.
he's
Yeah.
and he's saying to her, Megan, Candace is XYZ. Now, at that point, no matter what you say to to Michael in the heat of battle, you go home immediately and you check it out, because this didn't come from some fuzzy source. This came
Yeah.
from the guy that you agree with on everything, right?
Yeah.
No, she didn't care. Now, to just take the next step. Now, what is Candace saying? Leave aside the whole Charlie was bristling about the Jews putting pressure on him, because that's all to some extent obviously true, because all you have to do is hear that conversation between Charlie and Megan and see the emotion in his voice, and
And
you
I
know he
want to
was
talk
bugged.
about that. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
want to
So
talk about that.
obviously he went to this um, conference or getaway or whatever they convention, whatever they want to call it. There was a word for it, and a lot of
Summit.
people summit, and a lot of people got mad at him for him buckling a little bit, or being kind to Tucker Carlson or whatever it was, and he was mad. But he said even to Megan, listen, I'm a Zionist. I defend Israel. That's why I'm so mad at them. But that's fine, and that's interesting, and maybe it's important. There is no nexus between that story in any sane person's mind and the notion that the Israel had him assassinated. Like the Mossad, you don't jump from the fact that Bill Ackman pissed off Charlie Kirk to the Mossad had Charlie Kirk assassinated. The Mossad, I mean, I hate to even say it. Mossad didn't assassinate Candace Owens, right? The Mossad didn't assassinate Noam Chomsky. The Mossad didn't assassinate Edward Said. The Mossad didn't assassinate any number of much more important anti-Israel figures over the years
Of course.
than Charlie Kirk, right? And on such short notice, and I mean, it's so fucking crazy, right?
Yeah.
And just by coincidence, the guy on Twitter sent me today this quote from George Orwell. George Orwell, I haven't read the essay, but it's from an essay that George Orwell did in the 40s about anti-Semitism. But anyway, there's this one line here which just stands out to me. He says, these people always say, as Hitler says in Mein Kampf, that they started out with no anti-Jewish prejudice, but were driven into their present position by mere observation of facts. Yet, one of the marks of anti-Semitism is an ability to believe stories that could not possibly be true. Now, isn't that fucking a punch to the gut? Because this is exactly what it is. This
Yeah.
ability to believe stories that can't possibly be true. And by the way, that little thing got me in trouble. You can interrupt me at any time, because I criticized Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you heard me.
Yeah.
Because right after October 7th, he was ready to believe that Netanyahu was in on letting it happen. which could not possibly be true, right? I
Yeah,
said, what's
and
going on with this guy? Go ahead.
I saw your whole back and forth about that and your commentary on that. And there were people who were really trying to defend Charlie Kirk, and I think you were just like responding with the transcript. Like, no, 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 I'm not cutting context. This is, he brought it up, whatever. I like that is something that I'm willing to get past, and maybe it's because of the areas of the internet that I spend my time in. But like that was there were a lot of people saying that shortly after October 7th. There were lots of Jews and Israelis asking what the fuck happened. Now, Jews and Israelis weren't thinking, yes, there was a government conspiracy to
That's right.
allow
That's
all these
that's
people.
that's of course we're all wondering what
Yes,
happened.
yes, yes, and you're right, and that's what that requires. But again, if like fair or not, so many people have conspiracy theories about Israel that seem plausible to them that people like you and I are like, do you know how many levels of command, how
No.
many people that would have to go through?
No,
So
no, because no, because it, as I said on that show, there's like a Venn diagram of one person who is extremely pro-Israel, who is immediately ready to believe that. Like, sure, anti-Israel people are ready to believe that, and as I said, um, there's many anti-Israel people who would never even believe that. They just oppose Israel, and pro-Israel people would never even consider that but there's one guy I knew of who was like, yeah, yeah, I'm really now two things because I know someone prominent who knows Charlie Kirk, and he's very upset about my even bringing that up. And I have to say, just to be perfectly fair to Charlie Kirk, there are all kinds of videos out there where he's speaking on behalf of the Jewish people that will make a Jewish person's heart stir and tears to their eyes. I mean, he spoke beautifully on behalf of
yes,
the Jewish people and on behalf of Israel. So to call him an anti-Semite would be absurd.
yes.
So I really, but yet there he is saying, and
No,
I
I
really
know.
I tried to think about what it is that I was feeling about it. So I did write a response. I just happened to have it in a text message to somebody who questioned me about this, and I'll just read it to you, and
Yeah.
then um, because it was right after the letter came out, and he said, "Did you read the letter?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Did you think could that be written by an anti-Semite?" And I said, the simple answer is no. I said, my longer answer is, I don't think I ever called him an anti-Semite. I didn't ever call him an anti-Semite, but I was unnerved by the ease with which he was able to imagine a mass conspiracy of Israelis engaged in unthinkably evil acts. A conspiracy that, if he thought about it for 2 seconds, would have to include friends and family of the victims themselves and opposition leaders of Netanyahu. What it brings out to me is that one, and this is what I wrote, conspiratorial DNA is like Tay-Sachs gene, in certain right-wing gene pools. And
Yes.
conspiracy theories never end well for the Jews. Two, Christian support, I'm talking about the evangelical Christians for
Yeah.
Israel, which I appreciate and adore and have tremendous affection for, is built on a foundation that has important differences from the secular and Jewish ones. It can exist and stay solid despite viewing Jews in some ways as still as others, and a way which, under different circumstances, could easily manifest itself as bigotry. So that's the best I can come up with. That they are, thank God, they support Israel with all their hearts. They're not anti-Semitic, but they don't come to their, in evolution, there's analogs and homologs. Like some things that look like hands are actually related in evolution to the hands, and other things actually do the same function and but actually they have nothing to do. They just came in a different way.
Right.
They come to their support of Israel through a different way. And so their reflex will not always be the same
Yes.
as ours is. And I think that's the only way to explain how he could have such deep affection for Israel and a deep Christian belief that God, essentially, that's what they believe, is on the side of the Jews and Israel here. And that's
Yeah.
really where he's coming from. And yet
Yes.
have certain be prone to having a certain suspicion of the Jewish people. That could just be come from lack of experience and naivete, or who knows. I don't want to. To call it anti-Semitism would be a calumny because anti-Semitism is a hatred. He obviously doesn't hate Jews.
Well, it's a hatred and it's a conspiracy theory.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think the part that's most salient there is the right-wing genetic predisposition. I say that obviously not seriously, not literally. The right-wing genetic predisposition to conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
And so I think so putting that he said that on the side, because again,
Yeah.
I'm able to get past that because I did know a lot of people who said shit like that, people who are not anti-Semites. And it's crazy to me. And again, it's so insulting. And all of this stuff, I mean, just a little side tangent. People like you, people like me who know people who are actually fighting in Gaza, it's our friend's cousin or brother or whatever. And it's insulting to insinuate that all of them are out there trying to murder babies, all the people that would have to be involved in these demonic acts for any of this stuff to be true. It's insulting to people like us, yes, who know people there. But I think, and I don't know if I said this to you or not, but I've really been wrestling with this, and I think I heard someone else say this. It might have been like Commentary Magazine on their podcast. I don't remember where I heard this, but it's something that I've been wrestling with. When Charlie Kirk died, I was really devastated. I was a fan of his. I'll do the perfunctory. I didn't agree with everything he said, but I agree with most things he said. Like a lot of the stuff where you could clip him for being, sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? Extreme in his rhetoric, like the point that he was making that underlined it, I agree with it for the most part. And I just thought it
You
was
didn't
just
find him anti-trans? Isn't that an issue that bothers you?
no, I don't really think he was all that anti-trans.
No? Okay. I
No,
didn't follow.
I think we share, like, I'm much more accepting. I don't have religious reasons to be against gender nonconformity in the way that he does. But his essential thesis was like humans can't change sex, and I would rather people be happy in the bodies that they're in. And I'm like totally behind that message, totally behind that
Okay.
message. And kids shouldn't be
Okay.
able to change sex. So all these things I'm good with. But I was really devastated as a Jew because he was like one of the loudest and most effective defenders of the Jews and Israel that we have in America. And it wasn't always perfect, and it was very funny to hear him speak and mispronounce Hebrew words and stuff like that. But he was really out there doing that. So that was devastating. And Charlie was that. He was basically the biggest microphone defender of the Jews in America. He was both the bulwark against anti-Semitism on the right and kind of ushering it in because he needs to maintain the big tent. So I really see that he was like trying to
Ushering in what?
the anti-Semites
No,
also.
you don't mean ushering in the belief. You mean ushering them in to talk to them. He
Yes, but
wasn't trying to spread
no,
anti-Semitism.
no,
No.
he wasn't, but he had to tolerate it. He had to
Yeah. Okay.
tolerate it to
Yeah.
maintain a big tent. And so he didn't want the anti-Semitism there. He wanted to keep the people engaged. He was hoping he could change their minds. He wants to keep the coalition together. So he was in the ways that he was getting shit for. He could have drawn a line in the sand, right? And said, no more Tucker Carlson at our events, no, he could have stood up against Candace publicly. And there's lots of reasons that he didn't do that. But he chose instead to, which I think a lot of people on the right are doing, is like they don't want to deal with how bad this really is, kind of like they're trying to, although I think he did realize how bad it really is. And that's kind of shown in his letter to Bibi. Like I think he really was concerned with it, but he was trying not to, he knew that it was a delicate dance basically that he was taking part in. And I think that's a big problem that's happening right now on the right is like so many people want to still have space for these people. And there's this very tribal thing going on that I think Megyn kind of made really clear. Someone called her out for like always calling it anti-Semitism out on the left, right? And she's now kind of like the left is where all the Jew haters are, like I'm not going to hear any of this, no enemies to my right type of thing. And I think well, I think a lot of things. I think the right is really fucked, and that's unfortunate because I feel more like a Republican than a Democrat, but like, I really feel like a Jew during these times. And I don't, sorry, I'm like schizophrenic in all my thoughts right now.
No, go ahead.
But I guess along these lines of like the Megyn and Kelly, the Megyn and the Charlie, Okay, their reactions in that video of feeling frustrated and being pressured by their friends, that seems very human and understandable. Like we all
Yeah.
can relate to that feeling, especially for the two of them who actually have earned a lot of trust and space.
Well,
Megan,
nobody was freaking out about it. I mean, that show went on the air, and before he was killed, I mean, we all knew about it. It wasn't like anybody accused him of being an anti-Semite or anything.
no, but there were people were, and
After that show?
after his one with Megyn Kelly, you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about
Huh.
after that show. I'm sure some of the pressure was still maintained after that show. Yes, where people were
Yeah.
still like, I don't think you're an anti-Semite, but you're letting these anti-Semites into the tent. You're not,
Well,
whatever, you're not drawing
yes.
lines. And they're right. That's
Yes.
true. These
Yes,
things are
they are right.
correct.
Yeah.
But I do think like, so I worry that, all the people who are getting on there and saying, like Kelly, like Megan is saying, like, don't push your friends away. Even if it's not fair, we have to take that seriously.
No, I don't think
Meaning,
it's.
but why? Then what do we do? Do we not need friends?
Do we not what?
Do we not need friends?
Listen, there, it's the business she's chosen. I mean, if you're a public, you know, pundit intellectual, and you want to go on the air and talk about issues and newsmakers, well, the first thing you should do is not become intertwined with them. But if you do become intertwined with them, I mean, we can all understand, as you said, the human situation that she's in, but that's quite a different matter than then saying, well, it becomes forgivable, because it's not forgivable. It's just
Well,
not.
I don't even mean forgivable.
It's just not okay. It's like
I'm
it's
not
just
saying
not
it's
okay.
okay. No, I
No.
agree. I agree. I
And
agree.
and, and
But
let me just say, we're talking about outlandishly. Listen, I soured on Tucker Carlson long before he turned against the Jews, and we're talking about a world where I've said this in my tweet, where you have underwater space demons and satanic attacks, and he's mauled, and uh, studying alien cadavers, and Jews kidnapping and killing Christian babies on Passover. And I mean, the sky is the limit here, right?
yeah.
Referring to the Bolsheviks and bringing on and listen, and her Candace's guest host is Ian Carroll, who was a flat out Holocaust denier, and Tucker brings on Daryl Cooper, who says the Jews orchestrated World War II. The Jews orchestrated World War II. And then Daryl Cooper has on his show Ryan Dawson, who is a outright Holocaust denier. And there's no bottom to this. This is not just bringing on even Max Aaron Mate or Max Blumenthal. It's you're talking about, I mean, if it was a movie script, you'd think this was overdone. And she interacts with these people as if they, like borderline. Sometimes they say some things I don't agree with, but they're my friends. This is insanity. This is gaslighting. Like Steven Pinker has this new book about common knowledge. That if you know that, if they know that you know that they know, then they're in a, like, yes, we haven't accomplished that. But the fact is, like, I know that Megan knows that I know that Megan knows that this is not just a difference of opinion here. Any other person who is saying this kind of stuff, this is much worse than anything Farrakhan ever said. I mean, Farrakhan never, so no, like it's just,
I don't even know. I don't know that it's much worse. I mean, Farrakhan was like just he's really extreme in his rhetoric too. I mean, he called Jews cockroaches and stuff like that. But
I'm
I'm
not
with
even sure he
you.
said that. I'm not even sure he said that. But
He
that would,
well, he might not have said Jews. It's like one of those funny things, right? Where there's a little more plausible deniability.
and Tucker Carlson says Zelensky sweaty rat like,
Yes.
and wasn't it Candace who referred to somebody as a rodent on Twitter when she got mad at him?
So when did you sour on Tucker?
I soured on Tucker when I agreed with him. I remember he was, you know, Tucker was early to the control the border thing, and for better or for worse, I was sympathetic to a lot of the policy direction of wanting to control the border. And I was even sympathetic to the fact that we were putting our heads in the sand about the potential consequences of mixing in a lot of ethnicities while at the same time um, uh, abandoning the concept of a melting pot. It's like, how exactly is this going to work out? And I remember saying, you know, um, I was actually writing something about it today that, we say that these people, when they're outside the country, when they have no constitutional rights, like it's none of our business where they're from. Who are we to decide what country, or like whoever wants to come in should be able to come in. And then when they get here and they're Americans and they have constitutional rights, we have the nerve to say, oh, we can't have too many Asians at Harvard. And I'm like, how can you say it doesn't matter where you take these ethnic groups from when they're outside the country, when they have no rights? And as soon as they come here, you strip them of their rights by saying, we're not going to treat you as an American, we're going to treat you as an Asian. So I was anyway, I'm talking too much. I was very sympathetic to all that. But he
Hold
would get
on.
on the air and say something,
I'm pausing
and
you
I
right
say,
here,
oh my,
Noam, because
what?
sorry, our
Yeah.
meeting's about to end.
Oh,
I want to end it not cutting you off in the middle of a sentence, and I'm going to send
uh,
you a new link in a minute, okay?
okay, okay,
Is that
good.
okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right. It says less than a minute left on my end, so I just don't want you to get cut off right in the middle of your sentence.
So
Um,
should we wait for it to finish?
I'll just end it here basically because it
Da,
says less
da,
than a
da,
minute,
da.
and
Yeah.
then I'll send you a new link. All right. Oh, I can't hear you
I
now.
was a guy who agreed with Tucker on things, and but then I would look into stuff he was saying, and I say, oh, well, that's not true at all. And this he'd have some outlandish story, and that I'd be upset about it. And I'd look into it and say, well, actually, no, they had, there was a good legal reason to behave that way, and same thing with COVID. He would wheel out some guy in a paralyzed in a wheelchair like that. He go, the vaccine, like with no standards whatsoever. And then during Russiagate, he had this whole conspiracy about John Podesta's brother. My mind is not remembering what the theory was, and he said we have a very important source inside the Podesta world, and then it went on for like a week, and then he just dropped it like it never happened. It was just there were bioweapons labs in Ukraine. It was all kinds of stuff. They even
Bad
so I was.
journalistic practices.
Yeah, and I remember telling friends, and I would have big arguments with people, and some important. I said, somebody's got to stop this Tucker Carlson guy, because I know that methodology is everything. You know, when Candace Owens, it's the same thing. When she was saying a lot of things that right wing people liked, and obviously Ben Shapiro hired her and Dennis Prager hired her, I never liked her. Coleman Hughes was always skeptical of her. I think for the same reason. It didn't matter how she was coming, what her conclusions were. You could see when she showed her work that it wasn't trustworthy.
Yeah.
Didn't matter that she had the answer, like, if like I sound like an old man. If like it's a lesson in life, I tell my kids, you need to understand that you will always get burned if you become enamored with somebody because they're telling you what you want to hear, rather than because you identify that they have substance. And so that's
Yeah.
just a very, very long answer. So then came Israel, and people, oh, you don't like him because he's anti-Semitic. Well, it doesn't help. No.
No, so well, I asked that question of when you soured on Tucker because I was never a Tucker Carlson fan. I mean, I was like I was like a radical leftist, right, for most of my life. I only had really an ideological turn in the summer of 2021, which was the last Israel-Gaza war, right?
Right.
So I never liked Tucker Carlson. I thought he was evil. And then I, got into more heterodox spaces and listening to conservatives and all this, and my mind changed a lot, not necessarily about Tucker, but I was certainly more open. I was more ambivalent about Tucker. And
Hmm.
I recall, not necessarily recently, but at least a couple years ago, the Fifth Column boys, on multiple occasions, Tucker would come up and Moynihan would have a pretty robust defense of him, not defending everything he ever said, but just saying he's a really smart guy. I've known him for years. We should have
Everybody
him on
says
the
he's
show.
smart. Yeah.
We should
Yeah.
have him on the show. I have his number, and so there was this, and I say that to say people come to these conclusions at different times. So I don't want to like rule anybody out, you know, like I'm the door is open to Megyn Kelly as far as I'm concerned, although that doesn't require me making excuses for her or apologizing for her right now.
I
But
would
so
love to see that. Okay.
I think with part of what I want to ask you, and this is kind of along the lines, I think, of your conversation with Ami Kozak. And I don't even recall actually I don't recall exactly what your conversation with him was. I just recall that it was a little tense. And I'm
Mhm.
obviously a big fan of yours, and I'm a big fan of
He's a
his
good
too.
guy. We went out to dinner after that. We had a good time.
And him and his co-host, have you ever watched his podcast?
No, but I still poke him
Chat with
because
him,
no, but because I thought he was so wrong in that podcast, and I think the world has come my way, not
catching up.
his.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
no, and well, his podcast host is a very smart, interesting guy too. So you should watch a couple episodes. I recommend it. But that tension plays out on his show also, and he's even I think coming around a little bit. But something that I appreciate about Ami because I think it is wise. I feel like part of his analysis is sort of like life isn't fair, but what do we do about it, right? You know, like if we are in an ideal world, everyone is acts in an entirely moral way, right? And they're able to see things as clearly as we see them when we see them. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses because when you lay it all out, it is so true. Tucker and Candace, they're not subtle. They are fucking crazy people. Loud alarms blaring crazy
did you
people.
hear her today? I mean, she's saying that. Oh, and but it has to be said. She's saying that turning point was in on killing Charlie
Yes.
Kirk and Israel. And this is nothing. This is nothing to fault Megan for. We somehow skipped over this.
Yes. Oh,
She
actually,
has
yes.
been she has been destroying anybody who dared suggest motives that she didn't like for why Charlie Kirk was killed. We know it's a trans, blah, 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 except the most outlandish, ridiculous thing. Like, in other words, it was certainly plausible that a groiper killed Charlie Kirk. Like you can see like it starts with a crazy person. So like I'm not trying to put it in any kind of in any camp. Obviously, someone who assassinates somebody for any of these things is an unstable, unbalanced person.
Sorry, I can hear you.
That's
I have the
okay.
headphones
Yeah.
in, just
No. Is
responding to the
is
barking dogs.
is an unbalanced person. However, the notion that somebody within the movement felt that he was not he wasn't hardline enough or whatever it is, or too kind is, that was certainly plausible, right? Megyn Kelly freaks out and screams at them and calls them blaspheme to say that somebody within the MAGA movement might have killed Charlie Kirk. Her anger is righteous. I get it because there was no evidence for that. All the evidence pointed in another direction. But then you have something much worse saying that this was an assassination, not just by Israel, by the way, but involved Bill Ackman and the people, rich Jews. It's like a real fucking
She's
conspiracy cabal, right? She's like, oh, she's brilliant and, she probably
Well,
has
that's the thing.
something.
She's talking out of both sides of her mouth. And
Oh,
a lot of people
unbelievable.
are doing this. Like Anna Kasparian has been doing this too. And I don't know how much you follow Anna Kasparian, but she's an
I
interesting
don't
person
follow
to
her.
talk about. Okay, well then, put that on the side for now.
No, talk. I know who she is. I don't follow
Well,
her.
well, they're both doing this thing, which is there is no evidence that Israel assassinated Charlie Kirk. No evidence.
Yeah.
Also, Charlie's thoughts on Israel were really changing in the lead up
Yeah,
to
yeah.
his death, and Bill Ackman was threatening to, so they lay out the entire conspiracy for you, but they front and backload it with, I don't believe this. There's no evidence has been presented, but let me just fully make the case. And so Megyn, I keep calling her Kelly. Megyn did come out and say like it's ridiculous. She with the righteous indignation that she said about the Grapers too. Ridiculous. Of course not. We know who killed him. It was right. It was the trans Tifa. Whatever. But then she doesn't. You would think that ire would be directed at Candace, right? That
And
righteous
Tucker.
indignation and Tucker, but let's say specifically Candace in this
Mhm.
scenario here.
Okay.
And so it's like, why isn't it? And there's this other interesting thing that again I can't figure out, and this is why a sense of loyalty to me. I'm trying to balance what I think her motivations are. Not that it really fucking matters, but it kind of does if like we as Jews need to
Well,
We need to
what
wade
does
through this.
loyalty mean? What is the definition of loyalty?
I don't know, but hear me out. So there are people on Twitter, smart people, as concerned as you and I, hypothesizing about all of this. And someone said today, made a big thread, got a lot of attention that I think is like partially right, which is like Megyn's just playing a tribal game, you know, like she's falling for the trap that she accused the left of, which was true, which is you guys are being absorbed by your crazies. You're not calling them out. You're not, there's no firewall between you guys, and you're just letting it absorb and eat your entire movement. And so this guy's thing was like, you know, Megyn has spent years rightfully calling out anti Semitism on the left, but now she's not calling it out on the right. And he was said, you know, this is an adaptation. This is a no enemies to the right thing, which is an adaptation of no enemies to the left, you know. And I sure, I do think that's partially true. And again, to the extent that they're like trying to maintain this coalition, and right now the coalition includes neo Nazis, I do think that's true. But I
Hmm.
think like if you interrogate that further, then she is being extra hypocritical because Candace
Yes.
and Owen are none of their criticisms are a right wing perspective. They're frankly not even doing like the libertarian end all foreign aid thing, even though Tucker kind of pretends that's his shtick sometimes, you know, to give him some plausible deniability. But they're making super like leftist and like faux humanist appeals to their audiences. So much
It's a
so
very
that
good
again,
point. You're making a very good point. Go ahead.
and beyond that, not just literally the scope of their arguments being very leftist coded, but the appeals that Candace and Tucker are making are just to the left. They are just
Mhm.
literally appealing to left wingers, like where Megyn Kelly still is a very partisan Republican. You know, she makes exceptions for friends, Jake Tapper, Glenn Greenwald, you know, people like this that she'll talk to. But she's still super. She is hyper partisan, right? It's everything is the left. Right now, she kind of dropped a lot of her free speech principles and whatever because she wants to play the tit for tat game. She wants to punish the left the way they punish the right. Whatever. I don't agree with that mindset, but like that's all like it's coherent at least. Um, so she has this like belief, right, that it's the left is the enemy and we need to be like protecting the right. But Candace and Tucker are bringing on the left. They are
Mhm.
partnering with the left and saying it explicitly. I mean, Candace makes these types of comments and appeals to her audience all the time. It's really not about left and right anymore. You know, we're all noticing the same things. You know, we're all coming
It's
together.
us against the Jews.
Yes, and Tucker too. I mean, Tucker's podcast is literally an anti-American rag. Like he has on Jeffrey Sachs 17 times in the last year. He had on Anna Kasparian recently, who is like a far leftist. And what do they overlap on? Their hatred of Israel. So that aspect of it, I think, hasn't been discussed because there is again, it's like it makes it a neat little. It's too easy almost to accuse Megyn of just playing the like, you know, we're all on team Republican, so I'll call out the anti-Semites on the left, but not on the right, because the anti-Semites on the right are like they're like right in name only at this point.
Tali,
And they're
I
also, oh,
mean,
sorry,
yeah,
one step further, they're not MAGA. They are
no,
not MAGA.
no,
And
they're
that
not.
too is like, why does that not? They are anti.
I wrote an essay about this today. I don't know if I was going to publish it or not. I wrote it. It's exactly everything you're saying. I'll email it. It's just a draft,
Send
but
it
I'll
to
email
me.
it. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead, finish your thought.
No, no, go.
No, I mean, my personal feeling is that what's going on here is vis-a-vis Megyn Kelly is absolutely indefensible. There is literally nothing she can say for herself that will hold water with anybody who is thinking in a any kind of objective way. She's a hypocrite to everything she ever stood for. She's defending people that, I mean, does Megan think Tucker was mauled by demons? Does Megan think we're studying alien
Well,
cadavers? Does
it
Megan
makes me
think?
wish it makes me wish that Megyn Kelly was coming on to live from the table because you really are one of the few people who will do that, who will sit down with someone and just like, okay, we got to go over these craziest things, you know. And again, like I said,
She
people
won't.
don't like that. I know
No,
she won't, but
no,
it's
but she won't
unfortunate.
because she knows.
But I
I
am
mean,
dying to hear what she would say, and that's where I go back to the loyalty
well,
thing. And again, I can't. Yeah,
wait.
yeah,
So
yeah. Go.
today, both she and Candace Owens had shows today. The entire Twitter is ablaze with this thing about the Netanyahu letter, right? Neither of them directly confronted the issue. I think maybe Candace mentioned it as she went. In other words, neither, like you would think that they would say, "Oh shit, I got to go on the air tomorrow." Like, what kind of shamelessness is there that after you've gone all in, you had that conversation with Moynihan, and you said she wouldn't say, you would feel embarrassed. You feel I got to face my audience tomorrow. No, they just
That
pretended it basically didn't happen. This is not defensible. It's
no,
pathetic.
that's actually kind of worse to me, actually, no, that black pills me a little more because Megan, Candace aside, yes. The letter just completely undermines everything that Candace said. Like literally. And again, I think worse than that, because it shows that Candace actually, I do think, had the full letter in its context. So she knew she was lying, which again,
Uh,
shocker of the year, Candace Owens lies.
I don't, you may know more about this than I do. I don't know. Go ahead.
I think she did only because again, she was right that the letter was not just a love letter to Bibi and to Israel. It was a substantive critique of the information war, not a substantive critique of Israel, but or a substantive critique of Israel's PR, you could
Yeah,
say.
but I
Like
could have written that same
of
letter.
course, no, 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 of course, of
Yeah,
course, no, 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 no,
yeah,
no, of course. But my point is, the reason I think she actually did see it is because she was making claims. Someone put it together, but she was making claims that were the specific claims that Charlie wrote to Bibi about things that he's heard from students that she was framing as Charlie was confronting him with the fact that he's running an apartheid state and all of this stuff. So I actually think it's possible that she literally had the letter. I
yeah.
mean,
Why
I
not?
think I think that's possible. But all this to say, so for Candace showing it on her show, she wins nothing from this, right? It undermines her point entirely. Megan could have still come out with a W on this because
Yes.
part of Megan's story here is me and Charlie are ultra Zionists. We're just frustrated that, and Megan even says it too. Megan's like, people are tired of the war. We got to wrap it up so that it doesn't destroy our connection with Israel, all of this stuff. So it could have been a total win. Like, see, guys, this is exactly what I've been saying since the beginning. Charlie was what loves Israel and was just frustrated that whatever, X, Y, and Z. So her avoiding it and putting out the tweet saying this is all interesting, but if you want to hear the unfiltered version of Charlie talking to a friend, after this was published or after this was sent, then click here. That makes it much more nefarious, and I don't really know what to make of that.
Yeah. I mean, again, I was like, it's so bad. So having doubts and misgivings and criticisms and even thinking that there's huge mistakes being made by Israel, the sum total of all that could be a majority position among the pro-Israel Jews in the world. Like, there's a lot of people now who are having second thoughts about the war should end. It is perfectly simple for Megyn Kelly to transition to a more skeptical view of Israel and the war, while at the same time keeping a tremendous arm's distance from the vicious anti-Semites. And as a matter of fact, I had a conversation with somebody on Twitter today where I made the same point. Your position would be 5 times more plausible and persuasive if at the same time you said these things, you made it clear that you had no use for Nazis and anti-Semites, right? No. For some reason, as you want to become skeptical of Israeli policy, you have this embrace and this kindness towards the people who are not criticizing Israel's war. They're bringing up age-old conspiratorial theories about Jews being responsible for everything that's bad in the world, including World War II.
Well,
What
and
the
let me
fuck is
just
going on?
well, and just the one of all the things you just said, what triggered me in that sentence is no one is criticizing Israeli policy. Not Megan either. And like you
That's
said,
right.
like people are allowed to sour on the war. Millions of Israelis have soured on the war.
Yes.
They
Yeah.
still want Hamas ultimately defeated. They still want the hostages home, but they want the war to stop. Many of them. They are fatigued. They all of it. So changing your how you feel about the war, that's totally natural. Changing your positions on Israeli policy, sure, that can happen too. That's not what's happening. And so
Let me
that's
give a very good analogy. It's funny how like Trump's victory changed so much during the Biden administration. or actually even during the first Trump administration when George Floyd uh, died, was killed, whatever. I had I was one of the first. I did not think actually Derek Chauvin was legally guilty. I didn't think he was. I went to law school. I knew exactly how the arguments would have been in a law school class, and I knew very well and we could make the arguments that if that had been a hypothetical in my law school class at the University of Pennsylvania in 1986, at least three-quarters of the class would have said, no, he's not guilty, because that's how liberal people would have thought about that fact pattern if there wasn't the racial overlay that made everybody feel that. So now, having said that, if I wanted to go public with that point of view, the last thing I would ever do simultaneously with that is is deflect criticism of David Duke, who was making the same
Yes.
point. And by the way, George Floyd was not guilty because black people do this and black people do that and they're fucking it and they're monkeys. Like no, 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 no.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard enough for me to make this point, this intellectually honest point that I actually believe. The last thing I want to do is get tied up in people's minds with these fucking KKK monsters, right? Like you have to convince me to do that. It would be the
Yeah.
natural thing that I would do. Not that I would ever get tied up with the man, but I'd be more like, no, 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 get away from me.
Yes.
I want to be very pure here. So nobody should mistake, but she's doing the opposite. It's
Yeah. No.
reprehensible.
So you're so right, and I'm gonna. Well, a few things. I'm gonna
There's
be
no
talking.
defense for her. There
No,
really
no.
is no defense.
I'm gonna say two things that are very online. So I don't know if you're gonna know what I'm talking about. Well, Zaid Jelani, you know who he is. Zed
Yeah, well,
Jelani.
I sort of
So
know who he is. Yeah.
he's what a pain in the ass, that man, journalist. He had written a few things for the Free Press when Barry got started up. He's like a lefty, but like a bit heterodox, like kind of was challenging some of the illiberalism of the left. Since then, he's totally soured. He's dog posts about Barry. Like he's just so anti-Barry, all of this stuff. Very, very anti-Israel. And he was posting yesterday that video that's been going viral of like these like young white boys who are talking about like APAC money, and like we're all owned by APAC. And he posts this as like proof that like the American public is turning on Israel because of the genocide. And I'm just
Mm.
like, and I'm like, he said something like criticizing Israeli policy. And I commented, I said, what? Where in this video do you see a criticism of Israeli policy? Right. So that's one thing that
Yeah.
really pisses me off. The second thing, today I was, this is super online. I was on watching a live stream. This is all YouTube world, right? These guys, Sitch and Adam, they run a YouTube show, and they had on this guy, Actual Justice Warrior. That's his name. He's a YouTube content creator. He makes videos. Mostly, he's a New York guy, cool guy, right wing guy, but like really normal, smart, whatever. She calls it like he sees it.
Mhm.
He mostly posts about like crime and stuff like that, mostly from a New York perspective, but like local politics around the country. And he recently put out a whole video on Anna Kasparian blaming the Jews for 9/11, and was very critical of it. And he went and sourced all of the clips that she's talking about, and he shows all the context that's being left out. And he shows, like they say we don't think that Israel did 9/11, and then they say, like they know that the hijackers had box cutters, so they say, oh yeah, and these Israelis who were spotted, they found box cutters in their van, and it's like, well, yeah, because it was a fucking moving van. You know what I mean? Like these are so all these little tricks that they play. So he points out all of this, and today they're having a conversation on this other show, and someone tries to make the point to him, like, don't you think it's unfair that you're accusing Anna of perpetuating negative stereotypes against Jews when she's really just trying to criticize Israel, whereas people say that to you all the time. People always accuse you of perpetuating negative stereotypes against black people because you do videos about crime, and very often there's black people involved in that, right? And he made an excellent point, a la what you just said. And he was like, okay, Anna's on here talking, like on her news show that she does with Patrick Bet David on his channel. She's out there talking, saying that the sources for this Israel killed Charlie Kirk thing are Max Blumenthal, Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, and Nick Fuentes. This is who they named as the sources for all their points of information in the show. And so he's like, you're saying you don't believe that, you don't want to, whatever, harm Jewish people. And then all of your sources are these anti-Semites. He's like, yes, that would be a fair criticism of me if I was pulling my sources from the KKK, and
Right.
like white nationalist groups. He's like, I'm not. So it's a ridiculous comparison, but people really try to make that comparison because we've done a bit of overcompensating. You know what I mean? And I do think the cancel culture plays a role here. And maybe I am giving her too much of the benefit of the doubt. But I do wonder if part of Megyn's reticence is she doesn't want to contribute to a cancellation. Like she even said, you make a good point. Let me just get it out. You make a good point that she's not friends with Candace, but she worded something a little strangely in her defense of Candace today or yesterday, whenever it was, which was like, she's under enough pressure already right now, is what
Oh,
Megyn said. I know. Shed a tear.
poor little millionaire.
I know.
Pressure
I
for
know. But I do wonder how that is playing into Megyn's mind. And again, I say this, another piece of evidence, with the whole Van Jones thing that came out, right? That Charlie Kirk had reached out to him like a day before he was assassinated. Did you hear about
yeah,
this?
yeah, I did.
And
It
Megyn,
was
and
a
then
nice text. It was a nice text.
yes. And then Van Jones came out after, and did he write an article, or I know he did a couple interviews talking about this and like how it made him think about it and all of this stuff afterwards. And Megyn Kelly came out to basically say like, "Fuck you, Van Jones. You don't deserve any credit for this." Back when I was fired from NBC, for saying that like I don't think that doing blackface for Halloween should earn you a cancellation. She said they had a good relationship. They were friends. He had like reached out to her privately and, said like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Let me know if there's anything that I can do. And Megyn said something like, if you could say something publicly, like if you could, whatever. And he was something like, you got it, like whatever. And then time goes by and it never happens. And they touch base after, and he makes like some excuse, whatever. And so Megyn clearly is like harboring all of this even years later. And again, I'm not trying to give her excuses. I'm really not, but I am trying to understand what goes into
Well,
turning
okay.
someone like this.
Okay. You're touching on an important point. And it gets back to something you said earlier when I asked you what definition of loyalty is.
Hmm.
Loyalty, I mean, there's perhaps many aspects to it, but most aspects of disloyalty come from when somebody does not stand up for somebody when they should have, somebody who was right, who deserved to be defended, but the cost to the person who would have to defend was too high. They didn't have the courage to do it. They didn't want to make waves, so they stayed quiet. That's what you're describing with Van Jones.
Yes.
And that was the same thing with when McNeil got fired at the Times. We heard that the people who were into it, they knew he was being treated unfairly. They told him it's ridiculous what's happening to you. But when push came to shove, they stayed quiet.
Yeah.
That's disloyal. Some people think that loyalty means that no matter what I do, if I go rape someone, whatever it is, if you don't stick up for me, if you don't lie for me, if you don't cover me, if you don't say you agree with me, you're disloyal. No, that's not what loyalty is. Loyalty should not mean having to stick up for somebody who is wrong, who
Right.
is immoral, who is doing something indefensible. I mean, this what's his name? What's the name? The guy who killed Charlie Kirk, Tyler Robinson.
Robinson.
Tyler Robinson. Jesus Christ. Tyler Robinson's family, last I checked, they turned him in.
Right.
Was that disloyal? I mean,
So let me just
I
say,
yeah,
I agree with you. And I think you're
yeah.
making a very important distinction that people need to sit with, and again, I really am trying to make a distinction is
I
versus off.
suppose on that level of a father and a child, I could allow for somebody thinking that was disloyal, but you still get the point.
No, no, I
That's
totally get the
sticking up
point.
for my friend, the white supremacist, because he said, no, that's not loyalty. Doesn't You can't get me to do that. That's not
I
loyalty. Yeah.
agree with you. I agree with you. I really do. And again, I'm making a distinction between is versus off. I don't approve of this behavior, but I am trying to understand it. And so I agree with you. That is what means, that you draw a very good distinction there.
And by the way, people fail that test all the time.
Sure.
I'm shocked. In my life, I see it all the time. Even vis-a-vis experiences I've had, where some like the little the
People are
littlest bit
cowardly.
of flack that somebody might get, an employee who was
Yeah.
paid actually to
Yeah.
represent me in a particular way, if it was hipper and cooler to, roll their eyes at what the boss wanted, they did it. Say that's
Yeah.
not loyal.
Yeah.
Right? If you disagreed with the policy, of course you should come tell me. But otherwise, you're supposed to be. So people, it's not easy to be loyal.
No, I
But what
agree.
Megyn Kelly is this is not loyalty.
I agree. But again, I'm interested in even like maybe in sort of an anthropological sense. Something turned related to cancel culture where people were being unfairly maligned and
Hmm.
not being supported. And this is a right wing phenomenon because cancel culture was the domain of the left, whether people on the left are ready to acknowledge that or not. It went from we are not racists, bigots, phobes, whatever, to doesn't matter if we are, to I'm proud to be, right? And you
Hmm.
see the most dramatic manifestation of that in the Groypers, who, again, by the way, are not MAGA. And I think that distinction is lost, even kind of on people like Megyn Kelly. Like accusing a Groyper of murdering Charlie Kirk is not condemnation of MAGA, which is gets back to the point I'm trying to make of all these breaks within the right, really. But fuck what the yeah, it people now like will defend actually bad things because it's seen as like uncool to ever apologize or to ever concede. Like there's just so the our like way of interacting with each other has been severely corrupted. And it's not cool to be principled even. Like in so many ways, like I'm diverting now from my main point, but I've been meeting with a couple people online who are trying to like think about what the Republican Party is going to look like after Trump, right? Like what is 2028 going to look like? And it's like how do you sell a sexy principled message to people when everyone else is calling for revolution, you know? It's like how do we say like I want to support respect and civility and small government and, individual rights and freedoms when other people are like, talking about like overthrowing the government or the APAC pulling the string. I don't know. It's just like it's hard to and this is part of the attention economy. I'm like, again, I don't know. I don't have answers for any of this stuff. So I'm just like spinning my
Yeah,
wheels.
it all get mixed together. Like, if they would just limit their discussion to APAC, I'd be like,
But even that, no, it's a fucking dog whistle though, Noam. And I think that's another part that I didn't get to touch on. Thank you for reminding me. And I know I'm all over the place here, so I appreciate you bearing with me. But Megan's doing this thing too, where she's like, they are allowed to criticize Israel. Megan, no one is fucking criticizing Israel. Even saying like it's a genocide, I don't even see that as a criticism of Israel, frankly. Like, that's like it's a thought
no, it
terminating
is.
cliche. Sure, if you've looked into that, sure, I guess no, but like, do you think most of the people who are parroting that even like have looked into it at all, have thought really about it?
No, no, but no, I agree that it's an uninformed opinion. And
You're
there's
right,
an
though. At
article.
least that's leveled
Yeah,
against
it's
Israel.
a yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, there was an article today where I actually had a clip of here in the Wall Street Journal. It cracked me up. I don't know if you saw my Twitter. But it was that over the last few days, Qatar, and Turkey have tried to pressure Hamas leaders, warning them that this is their last chance to end the war in Gaza. Arab officials say they have told Hamas that if the group rejects the deal, they will no longer be able to continue providing them with political or diplomatic support. Now, this is what they say. Well, this sounds very much like Hamas. This is your last chance. You're being intransigent. We're not going to support you anymore. Could you imagine saying that to a people that you thought were actually the victims of genocide?
Right.
Like, like
Oh,
genocide, meaning
totally.
that,
Yes.
because in genocide, it wouldn't matter what
Of
Hamas's
course.
position, because the whole point of genocide is we're trying to destroy the people, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the
Oh,
genocide thing is business, but it
yes.
is a criticism of Israel
No,
as opposed
no.
to criticism of Jews.
You're right. You're
Yeah,
right. You
yeah,
are right. And
yeah.
No, you are right. And on that, I've made that point many times when I've gotten into debates about Israel, Palestine, and about genocide is you cannot surrender out of a genocide,
That's right. Well,
period.
you saw my interview with Omer Bartov.
Yes.
I hate to be.
But it was great. It was great though, because you outed him for just speaking out of both sides of his mouth. Like you can't hold these things. And he wasn't even trying to reconcile them
You know
either,
what cracks
really.
me up? I have to tell you, listen, I don't think I'm stupid or anything like that. I'm not a genius, and and I own a comedy club, right? This guy has been all over the airwaves, right? He's done interview after interview after interview after interview. I am the only interview
Yeah.
that called him out on his bullshit, and I'm the
Yeah.
only interview he did that he did not put on his Twitter feed. I monitor it. The only one who drew blood, and I
Yeah.
didn't, not below the belt, with his
No.
own words, with his
Yes.
own words. And I said, do you want to retract it? Go ahead. No, no. So I mean, it's shocking. It's shocking. I mean,
Yes.
this is just we're way off the subject, but it's just shocking how in academia it's just a total bubble, and you can really they cushion you. It's
Yeah.
just not done. You just don't. Even among people who disagree, they're gentle with each other.
Hmm.
It's corrupt.
It is. No,
Anyway,
it is.
I'm afraid your thing's gonna run out, but I kind of have to go soon because
Yeah.
I'm reading
It's
The
late.
Hobbit to my kids. But
Cute.
I think that as we've had this conversation, and I actually hear thinking it through and hearing myself out loud, I find it impossible. I'm pretty good. I could make the arguments for the Palestinians. I can make a lot of arguments. I do not know what I would say to defend Megyn Kelly here. She has gotten herself into such a bind, and it must have happened insidiously and slowly, and she didn't see where this was heading, although she should have, because it was obvious to other people. And now she could still get before the camera and say, you know what, I thought about it, and I'm wrong. I was wrong in these particular ways, and these comments are indeed anti-Semitic. And
She's dug herself too deep now to do it,
and I think
unfortunately.
the more likely dynamic, and I said this to somebody a week ago on the phone, is that she's just going to resent the Jews for staining her reputation now. She's going to pretend that everybody's calling her an anti-Semite, which really not many people have been. I mean, I see it from time to
The
time.
Twitter randos, but again, they are just
Yeah.
giving the less nuanced version of what we're saying. People don't like to hear this, by the way. And a lot of people, because a lot of essentially what you and I are saying, even people who are trying to very clearly make the distinction, we are saying you are not an anti Semite, but you are perpetuating anti Semitic talking points and beliefs. And some people can't even hear that. And I've actually been shocked how many like good faith, reasonable people won't hear that. Um, and so that leads me to a next conversation, which will have to be a different time because you got to go and we're running out of time here. But I do really want to talk about like
How many minutes do you have left? Don't you have a business? Can't you
three and
can't
a
you
half
spend
pro. I
20 hours
know.
a month for the
I know. I never use Zoom. That's the
all
thing. But to talk to you, Noam, might be worth it. But no,
right.
we'll cut it there for now.
I
But
have it. I could have sent you a link. I didn't even realize. Okay,
yeah.
good.
Well, but frankly, there's more I want to discuss. So no pressure, no rush. But next time you have some time, and if you're interested, there's more I want to talk about. But I appreciate you letting me vent all my feelings and talking it through with me.
Are you going to post this?
I think I am. Yeah, I have. Do I need to edit out your son's face?
No.
Okay, I don't know. Some people are precious about that for
Right.
understandable reasons. Your son is precious. But okay, then yeah, even easier. If I don't have to do any editing, then I can
Yeah.
upload it very
Yeah.
easy.
You just got to put the two conversations together.
I think I'll do like a part one and part two, even just so I have less editing to do.
No, 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 no. Because I said in the middle of a question, you got to. Oh, whatever. It's your show. Whatever.
We'll see. Well, I don't know how to edit, so maybe
You don't
what
know
do
how
you
to edit.
use? No, I don't do any of this stuff. I ran a podcast for a little bit, but my podcast co-host did all the editing. I
Well,
would just upload
I
the
use
file when it was
Premiere. I
done.
use Premiere, but if you just want to stitch two video clips together, I'm sure there's a million. You could probably even upload it to some online thing where they'll stitch it together. I mean, if
For
you just
free.
send me the two files, send me two files right now. I'll put it together for you to send it back to you.
You're offering to do work for me? No, of course I'll take that offer.
Take me 60 seconds.
All right, cool. Once this one down, I think the first one already downloaded. Once the second one does, I'll send them over to you.
Okay.
I appreciate it greatly. Thank you, Noam. And I
No problem.
will be in touch maybe to talk again and then also to come meet you in person in November.
Yeah, I can't wait to meet my wife. She's gonna love you.
Awesome. All right.
Okay, bye.
Thanks, Noam. Bye.
Bye.